Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us for our webinar today. My name is Laura Poggi, and I'm the Marketing Manager at RTTS. Presenting today is Jeff McCarsley, the Vice President and Chief Architect at RTTS. We'll be using the chat feature to take questions, so please feel free to send your questions or comments throughout the presentation. They will be addressed after Jeff wraps up the demonstration. Also, if there are any issues seeing or hearing the presentation, please alert the host through chat. Thank you again for your time and participation, and now I'll hand it over to Jeff to kick it off.
Thank you, Laura, and good afternoon, everybody. We're here to talk about QuerySurge, especially new features that we released for QuerySurge 2013 and how you can use them to build quality into your data warehousing strategy. QuerySurge is a unique tool, really, in a lot of ways in the data warehouse ecosystem. We solve many of the key challenges that teams are struggling with in order to build quality implementations for their organizations. Amongst those, of course, and principally are finding bad data wherever data might exist in your architecture, wherever it might be coming from. We support testing across a lot of different kinds of platforms, so whatever technologies you've built your data warehouse architecture out of, we support. Obviously, the addition of automation into the testing allows you to do bulk data verification, which is really what QuerySurge is about in so many different ways. In addition, of course, we provide an easy way of managing your testing assets so that they can be approved, they can be reviewed, and so forth. And of course, QuerySurge has uses beyond just the most narrow testing needs, which we'll talk about briefly in a few minutes. But amongst those, of course, are monitoring your data warehouse health when it's already in production. So what is QuerySurge 2013 all about? Well, of course, the critical things that QuerySurge has always been about are automating and scaling your testing so that you can get increased coverage of data that is flowing through your ETL process. And of course, we're interested also in supporting all the different technologies that you're using to build your data warehouse architecture from. So we've got the ability to implement bulk data verification across all of your ETL regs. We provide analysis across all of the data, regardless of source, what it's coming into your system from. And in addition to that, of course, we provide the advantages of QuerySurge's distributed architecture so that the testing can, in fact, be conducted very efficiently as you build out your data warehouse. Amongst the new features that we're going to look at today are some enhanced options for the data comparison. In addition to that, we'll look at results offered by email notification and team notification by email. And in addition to that, we'll talk about the different ways that you can schedule your QuerySurge tests, which are date-driven or event-driven, so you've got the full range of options ahead of you for that. It's always good to pause a moment and think about who in the organization can use QuerySurge. And there are some obvious choices and maybe a few choices that are not so obvious. So, of course, the development team, we've got a number of customers whose development teams are using QuerySurge for unit testing. So where the developers used to test maybe a few hundred lines once they deployed some code or built some code, now they can test tens of thousands of rows coming back to make sure that the code that they've just built fits the spec. Obviously, the QA team that is going to be testing the builds of the data warehouse can use QuerySurge. They can use QuerySurge for their day-to-day testing needs, where maybe you're going to test relatively modest percentages of the data coming through, and for regression needs, where you're going to test high percentages of data coming through. QuerySurge supports all of those modes of use. In addition to that, of course, your analysts can look into QuerySurge and they can review the tests that have been developed if they're of a technical bent, and make suggestions and give approvals based on the needs of the organization. In addition, they can look at the data that has come back to review that and make sure that the test is really returning the kind of data that they expect it to return and providing the testing coverage that the organization needs. And last but not least, we have a number of customers whose operation teams have gotten into using QuerySurge. And they are using QuerySurge not for building an application or a data warehouse, but for verifying that an in-production data warehouse is behaving to spec. So you can set up QuerySurge with your operations group so that they can run daily or even hourly checks on the data that is flowing through the ETL process and get reporting on that for the wider organization. QuerySurge offers coverage for you for the basic and extended workflows that all of these different roles will go through on a daily basis. So tests can be designed within QuerySurge, and you can craft the sort of overall coverage that you're looking for across all of your ETL legs. You can schedule those different tests as needed, so that they either are running on the basis of a precise scheduled time or running in response to events that are occurring in the overall environment. During those runs, you've got a live dashboard, runtime dashboard, that will show you data coming back into QuerySurge in real time. And after runs are over, of course, you can do reporting based on QuerySurge. Last, we've also got the administration area so that you can manage QuerySurge administrative tasks within the application itself. Well, with that as our brief introduction, what I'm going to do is just bounce over to QuerySurge itself. And here we are in QuerySurge's login window, and what you can see, of course, is after you log in, is exactly what we just reviewed, the full workflow. We won't belabor that. We're actually in right now the design library, so if I can point your attention over to the left, you can see we have a fairly simple tree view of tests built out, and when I click on one of our folders, you can see all of the query pairs that come up within QuerySurge for the tests that are related to the contents of this folder. What you can see here is what we call a query pair, and it's two queries that are logically related to one another. One is source query, which can test one side of an ETL leg, the other target query on the right, which tests the other side of that ETL leg. There are a couple of important things to note here. First, you can see that each of the queries is a standard query. You have access to all of the standard syntax for whatever tools that you're using, so you can be as creative as your project requires. In addition to that, of course, every query needs to run against a connection to a database. So if you look on the query for our source here, in this illustration, we have got a SQL Server database, that is our SQL Server sales database, and on the target side, we've got an Oracle database. But those are not the only technologies that we support. We pretty much support all of the major tools in the space. And if you look at our drop-down here, you can see that we've got all of the big providers. So all of the Oracle tools that are here, including Oracle itself, as well as Exadata. We've got Teradata as well. We have got, of course, SQL Server, as you can already see. We've got the IBM tools, so you can see DB2 here. And we've also got Netezza showing as well. And last but not least, of course, we've got Sybase. So all of those plus more, these are not the only tools that we can cover with QuerySurge. I'll just mention that anything that is JDBC compliant is, in principle, a good QuerySurge target. So that really means that almost all of the technologies that are out there that you're going to be using for your data warehouse are covered by QuerySurge. I should also mention, before we go on, that we also allow you to do querying from Excel files as well as various sorts of flat files, either fixed width or delimited files. Now, there are a number of things that you can do with a query pair once you've built your queries. As regards configuration of a query, there are a couple of new choices available out now, and I'll just point out two of them. One is that one of the things that QuerySurge is sensitive to is how many rows are coming back from both the source and the target, and you have a bunch of different choices now in how to configure QuerySurge's response to differing amounts of row counts coming back from source and target. In addition to that, of course, you can define keys in QuerySurge. So optimal if you're running your queries with keys on each query, and you can define one or more key columns with QuerySurge. And that will benefit you in terms of the kind of data that QuerySurge is able to extract from the returning result sets in your tests. Let's go look at a run. This is a design time run. Design time run, which I'm going to run again for us, is a run that is configured not really so much for testing purposes, but more for purposes of being able to illustrate that the queries that you built for your test are behaving within QuerySurge exactly the way you want them to. And what we're waiting for, of course, is our QuerySurge agent to pick up the query, and that happened. It fired off. We can now see a variety of pieces of information about this design time run. So we can see that, in fact, different numbers of rows came back from source and target with a difference of 34. And in addition to that, of course, you can see a variety of other pieces of information about this design time run. If you want to drill down into the data, you can drill straight into the data itself and see both source result set, target result set, and of course, if there are failures, you can see that as well. And what you can tell from this particular view is that based on the key that we defined for this test, QuerySurge found a series of what we call non-matching rows. The non-matching row is a row that has a key that is unmatched on the partner side. So in this case, the target had a series of non-matching rows, no matching keys on the source side, and that can be the start of your investigation of this data as to why that might have happened. Does that show some sort of issue with the ETL, some sort of issue perhaps with the test itself, with the query pair itself, etc. All right, let's move on now and look at the next step in the overall workflow. And the portion of QuerySurge that we're looking at now is the scheduling area. There are a number of different ways to schedule QuerySurge, and I'd like to just review them quickly right now. One of the major ways within QuerySurge to do this kind of scheduling is to create what we call a test suite. And a test suite is simply a number of query pairs that may be logically related that one needs to run as a group for a particular set of testing purposes. And if I can direct your attention to the right side of the window now, on this page you can see that we've got our query pair tree, and we can just pull over different folders of query pairs from our design area. We can pull over individual query pairs if we want to, and we can subtract out specific query pairs if we want to craft precisely the kind of run that we would want to meet a particular testing need. Once we've got all of our suites built, we can create what we call a scenario. And the scenario is critical for our time-based, our date-based scheduling. We can add as many suites as we'd like to a scenario. I'm just going to pull in some randomly here. And what we're going to do then is look at how we would schedule these. So as you can see, we've got a straightforward calendar-based scheduling. So if I want to schedule something to run at, say, 11:30 this evening, and perhaps something to run at maybe 2 a.m. Tomorrow morning, all I have to do is choose those values, and when I submit this, QuerySurge will follow those instructions. So, for example, if there is around the midnight hour some housekeeping that might occur on the overall architecture, and we have to steer around that because the system will be down, one can schedule these scenarios to run their suites accordingly. So very useful, straightforward piece of scheduling around time and date scheduling. Now, we want to recognize, and many of our customers do have this issue, that there are other scheduling needs that they might want to deal with. And those other scheduling needs might be things along the following lines. For example, some of our customers like to run a set of queries against their environment every day or based on some scheduling need. And the way they want to do that is either through a Windows scheduler or through a cron job in Unix. And so for that, of course, you need some external access to QuerySurge. in order to do that, and we have exactly that in the QuerySurge Execution API. Another way that people use the Execution API is to kick off QuerySurge runs in train with an ETL run. So they'll have an ETL leg run, and then they'll drop a command line at the end of that ETL run to execute QuerySurge tests in order to test the particular data that is ETL through during that run, then run another leg, and so on and so forth. And that's exactly what I'd like to sort of model for you right now. What I'm going to do very briefly is just kick off a very simple ETL spoof that we've got running in our environment. And what I'm going to do is go over to our runtime dashboard, and we'll watch this as this ETL completes and goes through its steps. And at the end of this ETL leg, we'll see come up in QuerySurge an execution of QuerySurge tests, query pairs getting executed in the environment in order to test out the ETL leg once it's completed. And what we'll be able to see once this ETL leg hits its completion is that QuerySurge will be alerted, and a particular query pair will be initiated, or excuse me, a particular scenario will be initiated. All of its query pairs will run, and we'll see that pop up shortly when QuerySurge updates. And as that's happening, there's the update. The second leg is now running, so we'll just bring that up here and put that at the bottom to remind us that it's there. And you can see the run is completing, and all of the query pairs are going through their different stages of completion, different statuses. All that data is coming back into QuerySurge, and it's getting analyzed. I should mention that the data that is returned back into QuerySurge for each run is retained by QuerySurge, so that you can always go back and look at your historical runs if you need to, in order to check perhaps what a test did some months ago versus what it is doing today. So now we've got this run completed, and as you can see, the second ETL leg is now going towards completion as well. And again, at the end of that leg, we'll get another run that is going to execute. Now, while we're waiting for that to happen, I just want to drill into this and show you some of the data that you can see once runs execute and data comes back into QuerySurge. And what you can see here in this pop-up is all of the query pairs that have been run as part of this scenario, and all of the data that is associated with them. So you can see the source data, the target data. In this case, there are no failures, but you can always see the source query and the target query. That's useful because very often one wants to eyeball the query while one is eyeballing the data, so that we can see exactly what might be going on. Here's a query pair that has failed. And so again, you can look at both of the source and target tabs in order to see the data that came back, and you can look at the failure tabs. And in this particular case, what you can see called out here is a data failure, and everything failed in this run. This is our stacked view, so each row, source and target, green arrow, blue arrow, is stacked one on top of the other. If you want to switch over to our side-by-side view, you can use that to see your failure data as well, with source data on the left and target data on the right. And clearly, we can see from either of these views that the shipping cost column has some problems with the ETL data. Let's just check and see now. You can see, yep, that everything has finished up here. And let's go over now and take a look in our email account that we've set up. And we got 2 email notifications that just came out from these runs. And you can see that we got for this shipping scenario that we just executed, the data of which we looked at, we got a bunch of information passed out in an email telling us all of the key particulars about this run, so we know who owns the data, what data was run, what scenario was run, and of course what was the outcome, and various other statistics associated with that. Since we ran 2 scenarios, we didn't look at this one in the in the QuerySurge interface itself. But we can see, again, that we had another execution that also had a failure outcome, and so we've got to go and check that out. And what I'd like to do now is do precisely that sort of thing. I've got a nice suite set up here that shows all the kinds of failures that QuerySurge traps. So let's just jump in and see what that looks like. The first kind is something that we've already seen, and this is a failure of data. So again, one can look with either the stack view or the side-by-side view and see where data has failed, what those rows are. There's another kind of failure that we also trap in QuerySurge, and we did see this as well before. And this would be where there's a row count difference between the source and the target. And again, in this case, we can see that there were 4 rows coming in on the target that had no matching key on the source side. So again, very clearly outlined information for you to start your investigation of what might or might not have gone wrong with the run. There are a couple of other conditions that QuerySurge traps, and I'd like to show those to you as well. In this case, what you can see is that we've got rows coming back in equal numbers from source and target. The data looks good, but when we go and look at our error tab, what we can see is that there is a typing issue between source and target. And that is to illustrate how QuerySurge is sensitive to data types. So what the message is telling us here, what this exception is indicating, is that we've got a column, our ship date column in the source, which is coming back, that's the rightmost column, as a date time from the source, but from the target, it's coming back as a varchar. And so QuerySurge is informing us of that, and that is now available for us to take some action against. If we're not interested in this kind of information, then we can simply filter it out, so to speak, by doing the type conversion in our SQL. But if we are interested, and there are many situations where we could be quite clearly, carefully interested in what kind of data is coming back in terms of type, this kind of notification will alert us to the issue, and we can then either track down where the issue might lie. And again, issues can lie in this sort of work in one of 3 different places. They could lie in the spec that has been delivered for the mappings. It could lie in the test, that is the query pair that you built in QuerySurge, or it could actually be an issue in the ETL code itself, which of course is what we really want to foreground in all of this. The last category of items that we pick up on in QuerySurge is whether there are any SQL exceptions. So in this case, the source query came back just fine, but the target query came back with a SQL exception and gave us some information about that error. If we go over and look at the target query just to kind of eyeball it, we might pretty quickly realize that we've just got a typo. That is to say, we misspelled first name, and there is, of course, no fifth name column. There's a first name column. And this would be the sort of issue that we would have caught in a design time run, but we've included it here so that you can see the full range of different kinds of issues that QuerySurge picks up on during execution. All right, well, there are a couple of other sorts of things that I'd like to point out to you as we move along. One of them, of course, is again that there's a full panoply of data that's available to you. All of your data is always persisted by QuerySurge. So if you want to go back and look at old runs, you can do that. I just pick up this one to show you simply because it's one that underscores that you can do a single scenario run of multiple suites, and that's what we illustrate here. You can go into each of these and check out the data that is associated with each of them. So when you look at your executions, you can see all of the data in detail. One thing I need to add to what we've already seen is that if you want to share out data in the different formats with coworkers or want to use it yourself in a different format, you have the option to export your data in either Excel format or CSV format or an XML format so that you can either import it into another tool for some sort of workup, or if you do that workup in Excel, you can just go straight to Excel and work with the data in Excel itself. So all your data is exportable and available to you in any of these formats. As we said, all of your data is here for you long term. Obviously, eventually, you will have some needs to clear out some of your data simply because, like all pieces of software, QuerySurge runs on hardware that will eventually get filled up with data. So, of course, the thing that you'll need to do is some maintenance on your data. All of that is contained within QuerySurge. If we get a chance, we can go over there a little later and show you how to do that. But it's your choice. The critical point at this stage is to know that it's your choice as to what data you keep, how long you keep it, and what you do with it once you have decided that you no longer actually need it live in QuerySurge. Let's move on now and go into the reporting module of QuerySurge. And what we're going to start out with is a report that is sort of our workhorse summary report. And the summary report that I'm going to show you is a brief report. The idea here is simply that you get the flavor of what you can see at a glance with QuerySurge. And this is a scenario report. It gives kind of at the level of a scenario what happened, and there are a number of important metrics that we provide in this report. Now, the first one is simply a kind of a standard results report. So you can see that in this run, this scenario run, we had 20 query pairs, 40 queries that ran, a pass rate of 65%, not a rate that is terribly impressive, but that is not all that there is to the story of this run. And we give you a variety of other metrics so that you can get a deeper view into the run. And one of those metrics that's, I think, critical to be aware of is the number of verifications. So we did about 6.7 million verifications in this run. And the verification is simply a sort of data-to-data comparison. So if you think of each of the result sets that came back as part of this run as a table, and you think about comparing the source cell 1-1 to target cell 1-1, source cell 2-1 to target cell 2-1, and so forth, each of those is an individual verification that we count here. So this execution had total of just under 7 million verifications, and of those we had about 280,000 data failures. So that tells us then that about 96% of the data came back correct. That is a reliability of 96%. So that is a whole different dimension, a whole different view into this run beyond the 65% pass rate, which of course is just based on individual query pairs, meaning individual tests. And what this 96% reliability tells us, along with the 65% pass rate, is that most of the data came back correctly, but the failures were distributed over a relatively large number of query pairs in this test. So failures with a wide distribution resulted in a relatively low pass rate, but overall, a good percentage, 96% of our data came back correctly. So that gives you an extra dimension, an extra view into the outcomes of a test, and we think it's an important overall way of understanding what occurred during a run. In addition, of course, to this information, you can see a few other metrics that we give here. Average row counts from source and target, average timings from source and target, and a variety of other metrics. So the idea here is that at a glance you get the whole picture of what occurred at a run. We just also mention that you can export this kind of report as a PDF, so that if you need to share it out either with managers or with other team members, you can do so. What I'd like to do now is go and look at another important report that we've got, and this is our detailed report. And what I'm going to do is run the report and show you that it starts out exactly as our summary report. It starts out, same kind of information, but the details are also included in this report. And here you can see all of the query pairs that were part of this execution. Critically, you can see what the outcomes are, so you can immediately focus on query pairs where there were issues. In addition to that, we give lots of useful metrics about each individual query pair so that you can see the precise information that led to the failure of each query pair. So if we look at the query pair ID 15 here, what you can see, of course, is that there's a failure for the outcome. Immediately you can see that there is a difference in row count here. So we had a row count difference between source and target. In addition to that, all of those rows that are in excess on the source side are non-matching rows, which means that their key was unique to the source side and did not appear in the target side. So that gives you good information at a glance. Another failing condition, of course, occurred with our ID 18 query pair, and in that case you can see that we got about 6,500 rows coming back from both source and target, but the issue there was data, and so we got data failures coming back there with that run, and that'll allow you to target in on that immediately. So those are the information categories that we've got coming back into this reporting from QuerySurge. This is a good kind of workaday report, so you can see what passed, what failed. If you set up to run, say, in the overnight hours, that is, you maybe set up an ETL to run initiated at close of business, and that ETL will fire off QuerySurge runs as ETL legs complete. You can then run a report once you come in the following morning and see exactly what might have gone right, what might have gone wrong, and you can do your reporting based on that and start your investigation of the data based on that. I'd just like to point out a couple of other reporting options that we've got here. If you want to do comparisons on different scenarios, you can do that. So if you want to see kind of what runs look like, maybe most recent runs over all of your scenarios, you can look at that sort of information. In addition to that, if you want to look at the last run for each query pair that you've got out there, you can do that. And of course, that gives you lots of rich information about all of the runs that have most recently completed. There is one thing that I want to cycle back to as I look at these query pairs now that I should have stressed a little bit earlier, and that is that we've talked about how you can write query pairs against a variety of sources. That is, you can write query pairs against all the different database products that your architecture is working with. You can write query pairs to test flat file against database. You can write a query pair to test Excel sheet against database and so forth. From the QuerySurge perspective, all of those tests are equal, and you'll be able to report on all of them as they flow back into QuerySurge with this kind of reporting. So everything that you've done, regardless of what the underlying technologies are, will come back into reporting such as this for QuerySurge. At this point, what I'd like to do is just make a few final additional comments about reporting. Just to note that we give you reporting that is administrative in nature, so that if you want to see who all your users are and report out on that, and different connections, you can report out all on that. In addition to that, you can also see query pair history and suite history. So if you want to look at the histories of various suites, you can look at that. I'll just mention, just going to pop back over to our design area. You can also see that kind of information on a per query pair basis in the design area. So if you want to see the history of how a query pair has been modified over time, you can do that. In this view, you can see all of the query pair revisions that have occurred, when they've occurred, who did the different revision. And if you go in, you can look and see what a query pair looked like at a particular point. And so that you can scope out each of the query pairs, and with our view, you can look at what was added to the query pair, what the modifications were, so that if you needed to check out when something changed and who might have changed it, all of that's available to you at the query pair level here, as well as at the reporting level. For those of you who come from organizations where there might be needs for audits of your testing assets, this is especially useful. Some organizations have legally imposed audits. They are externally imposed audit needs. So for them, this kind of view and the reporting that goes along with it can be quite valuable. Other organizations have internal audit needs, and for satisfying those needs, in addition, this kind of reporting and view can be quite useful. What I'd like to do now is just take a quick pass over into our notification area, because we had talked about setting up emails, and what I'd just like to bring up is the email setup, so to speak, that we use to generate the emails that we saw before. So let me just pass back to an email that we looked at, so you can see that we created this, we received this email message when the suite that we executed ran. It has some text here that allows us to find out what suite ran and when the execution time was, and then a bunch of detailed fields that give us important statistics associated with that run. All of that is set up here in the notification manager in the administrative area, so you can see that we can create a message with specific details, and we can edit this any way we want. So if we want certain details included, not others, we can craft exactly the particular message we want. We can send it to users either by name. We have particular users in our system that we want to send it to, or we can send it to people by roles. So their role in QuerySurge will allow them to receive particular emails. So that's that fairly straightforward setup allows you to share out whatever information you want to share out by email at the end of a run, and all of that is handled within QuerySurge for all of the kinds of notifications that you'll be doing within QuerySurge. Since we also mentioned the issue of retaining data in QuerySurge and data management, I'll just mention this also briefly. And what you'll be able to see here is and select here are all of the different runs that you've executed within QuerySurge, and you have a number of different choices for managing the data that is associated with those runs. You can choose out, for example, runs based on either dates here or by the name. In addition to that, of course, we show you the estimated disk space that the run is taking, so you can figure out which runs are going to get you the most bang for the buck in terms of cleaning them up. And then you have a couple of different options with these runs. One thing that you can do is do a delete. And a delete is a hard delete, complete removal of the information from the system. It's irrecoverable. So that's the most, if you will, effective way of returning disk space, recovering disk space, and returning it to QuerySurge to create other runs on. The other option for cleaning up that we've got is this archive option, and the archive option allows you to do what we call archive. What that will do is it will delete the bulk of the data associated with these runs, allows you to recover a large amount of disk space. In addition, it produces a recoverable file of that, an archive file of that data, so that you can move that data out to an archive area and delete it from QuerySurge. If you need to recover that data, all you have to do is point QuerySurge back at the file at a future date, and it will re-import the data into the QuerySurge database so that you can review it. So that's another option in terms of disk management and making sure that you make the most out of your database needs within QuerySurge. What I'm going to do now is just ask if there are any questions that have come up, and I'm going to kind of turn things over at this point to Laura to let me know if any questions have come in by chat.
Yes, actually there have been. So thank you for your participation, everybody. The first question that came up is, how much coverage can I get with this tool?
So that's a question that people are often interested in, because really data coverage, data validation over large amounts of data is what QuerySurge is all about. And the short answer to the question is really as much as you want, up to 100%. It all depends on how much effort has been scheduled for each individual run, how much time you've got. But in principle, QuerySurge is able to do 100% of your data. And there, I'll just mention, on projects that we've worked on, our consulting arm has worked on in QuerySurge, there have been, rare admittedly, but there have been a couple of times where we have been mandated to cover 100% of the data flowing in from a particular source. And so with appropriate setup in QuerySurge, writing sufficient queries to cover all of the mappings coming in from that source and all of the data coming in from that source, we've been able to cover 100% of the data in those cases. So that is feasible. It really depends on what the needs of the organization are in terms of data coverage. I would say maybe as just sort of a rule of thumb, for kind of regular runs, you're going to cover anywhere from maybe 10% to 40% of your data. Numbers in that range provide a good sampling of the data that really lets you get insight into whether your ETL code is providing the kind of transformations and the data flow that you're looking for. And of course, for your regression runs, you'll want to go towards the higher end of the range and do as much as you want, so that as you're running into a deployment and you're getting ready, you test as large a sample of the data as is possible, so that you have the highest level of confidence possible about what you're going to deploy to your production environment.
Okay. The next question is do you support composite?
Let me just take a step back before I address composite by itself. In principle, we support any JDBC compliant technology that is out there. And in addition to that, we deploy QuerySurge to any kind of environment that is out there. So we have numerous customers that have deployed QuerySurge to a variety of different data virtualization and virtualization schemes. And so on both of those ends, we should be able to support what you're doing with your data.
Okay. The next question is, does QuerySurge have an integration with Quality Center if we want to update the test results directly in Quality Center?
Right now, QuerySurge does not have a direct integration into Quality Center. That is on our roadmap, however. What our users, we do have a number of users who do use Quality Center, and what they do is they do one of the forms of export that we talked about, either export of data or export of reporting into Quality Center. So if they want to export particular data sets, they do that, or if they want to export specific reports, they do that in a PDF or Excel format, and once that data is available, they just take the export and attach it to their Quality Center test.
Okay. The next question is, how does the data comparison happen, and what is the overall architecture of the comparison engine?
QuerySurge, maybe let me just bring up a little diagram here of the QuerySurge architecture. QuerySurge architecture has some very familiar pieces to it. It's a web tool application. You access it through a browser, as you've seen. There's an app server behind that browser with a database, as we've alluded to. In addition to that, QuerySurge has agents which have the task of taking instructions from QuerySurge, firing off those queries in those instructions against all the source and target databases, and bringing the information back, all the result sets back into QuerySurge. Once QuerySurge has the result sets, it runs the comparison, and it's got a comparison engine, as we mentioned, that will compare pretty much data set one-for-one. It's a one-for-one comparison, and report out the results to you as you've already seen. And all of that data, again, is persisted within QuerySurge for examination at any point that you might need to report against, on and so forth. So all of the data is within QuerySurge itself, where the execution of the comparison runs, and I'll just mention that if you're using different technologies for source and target, as many people are, what QuerySurge does as the first part of its mapping process is to take all of the data that's coming in, convert it into a set of common types within QuerySurge, and it does the comparison based on that. And that's true whether your data is coming in from a database product, whether it's coming in from a flat file, whether it's coming in from other sources as well, such as Excel. So all of that can be managed within QuerySurge, and you can get the one-to-one comparisons of all your data as the data is analyzed by QuerySurge.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Our next question is, do you have any provision on integration with any ETL tools like Informatica, et cetera?
So for kicking off QuerySurge runs, in order to be as general as possible, we designed the execution API simply as a command line API. And that satisfies the need of, you can usually kick off a command line from all of the major ETL tools that are out there at the end of your ETL execution. So because of the desire to support as many different tools and environments out there as possible, we kind of stuck with the lowest common denominator sort of connection, and that's the command line. So pretty much anything that you can issue a command line out of, you can run QuerySurge out of.
Okay. The next question is, what is the user profile limit for this product? Is it a single user deployment?
Yeah, you can have as many users on an instance of QuerySurge as you want. Let me just hop back over to something that we didn't see within QuerySurge, which is the user administration. So QuerySurge is sold on a per user basis, and you can create as many users as you want within QuerySurge, and if you've got licensing to support the number of users that you need, you should be in good shape. The only thing that's required in terms of local install for each user is a browser, so everyone should be in good shape once their user ID is created in QuerySurge to start working.
Okay. The next one is, you mentioned connection abilities at the beginning. Is QuerySurge able to connect to an ERP system directly? And how about ODBC to legacy AS400?
Those are great connections as well. So all of the connections that QuerySurge supports right now are JDBC mediated. For those systems that are ODBC systems, QuerySurge can use a JDBC to ODBC bridge to cover those systems. In fact, actually, when we work with Excel and I might add Microsoft Access, that's exactly how we do it. We just use the JDBC ODBC bridge to go through the ODBC driver for either Excel or for Access, and we can set that up for any product that only has an ODBC driver.
Okay. The next question is, it's more of a confirmation. Somebody just wanted to confirm that the queries can be complex using common table expressions and intermediate tables, etc.
Yeah, another great question. Thanks for bringing me back around to it. So QuerySurge tries to be as agnostic about technology as possible, and allows you to use any of the syntax, the advanced syntax of your technology. So obviously, all of the standard SQL syntax is supported, but any of the custom syntax that any database tool that you're using is also accessible to QuerySurge. And I just opened up a query pair that points out something else about QuerySurge, which is that we also support multi-statement quote-unquote queries. So in this illustration, what we're doing is we are creating a view and we are populating it. We are doing our select from the view for our query on the source side here, and then doing some cleanup. So if you need to, you can do really sophisticated things, such as you can see here, create views and populate them and query from them. You can fire off stored procs if you need to, and then do queries based on the results of the action of that stored proc. So all of those different kinds of options are available to you. We do have users, for example, that will be creating as part of their executions something like either table or view and doing a variety of queries against it in order to support the kind of testing that they want. So all of those flexibilities are available to you both syntactically in terms of the non-ANSI syntax that your databases might implement, as well as in terms of being able to do multiple things in a single query.
Okay, and the next question is, how are queries optimized? Is the SQL pushed down to the source database, or does it rely heavily on writing quality SQL?
It does rely on writing quality SQL. We don't do any optimization of our own because we want to leave everything in your hands. That is to say, we want to encourage you and support you in being as creative as possible. I'll also mention that there's a sort of a philosophic stance about testing that is behind this, and that is that it is our conviction that the only way, not just the best way, but the only way that you really can do quality testing of the data that is flowing through your data warehouse is to have a skilled quality team, software quality team, data quality team, looking at the same spec as your ETL developers are looking at and developing test queries against that spec in much the same way that the developers are developing against that spec. And that really is the main way, and really I think the only way to get quality information about really what the ETL is doing. So that's kind of the philosophy that QuerySurge started out with and what it implements.
Okay, the next question is, if I have source data on a Unix box, whereas my target data or target system is on a Windows platform, will I still be able to run queries between data stores relying on two different platforms?
Yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. We actually have customers who are doing things like this now. If you mean that you've got databases deployed on either Unix or Windows, that's no brainer. In fact, that certainly works. If you're talking about flat files that are deployed on one versus the other, that also can be done. I'll just mention that we support deployment on a variety of different Windows and Unix environments. So we should be covered for pretty much anything that you're interested in doing. I'll just mention, for those of you who might be interested in giving QuerySurge a tryout, you can download a trial copy from our website, QuerySurge.com, and purely for trial purposes, you can just install that on a desktop and really see all of the features of QuerySurge played out, even in that fairly limited sort of deployment.
Okay. The next question is, how can I profile the transform data to check primary key constraints and data patterns against the target database table schema?
So QuerySurge is not per se a profiling tool, and there are tools out there that do handle that. So if that's really a major need, I would encourage you to go in that direction. QuerySurge is a dedicated data tool. It's for really vetting all of the data that is flowing through. If you work with data, and I'm sure you have, or else you wouldn't be interested in this, you know that once you've got a set of data that's come in from some source or some set of files, whatever it might be, some database that has been acquired by the organization or is flowing into your organization currently, you just find all kinds of things that are very difficult to imagine prior in that data. And QuerySurge will help you ferret those out and make sure that they're handled properly for your ETLs. In terms of the actual profiling, though, wisest to do that with a true profiling tool. QuerySurge will give you the data check. It'll give you the data type check. That's its focus.
Okay. The next question is, can QuerySurge be integrated with QTP?
Okay, so that's yes. So that's an interesting question. It does also help illustrate the focus of QuerySurge. As I've said a couple of times, QuerySurge is really focused on data. So QuerySurge, if you've got, say, kind of a standard data warehouse layout, meaning some source databases, maybe ETLing into some staging databases that ETL into the data warehouse, which ETLs into the data mart, you can test all of those ETL legs with QuerySurge effectively all the way up to the data mart. Of course, in front of the data mart is going to be your BI tool, and the BI tool is something that your organization will be using for reporting on the contents of the data. That's where QTP would come in, because that's really the user interface to all of your data. QTP is a user interface tool. So we're all about data. Now, let me just offer the following option for you that you could use with QTP, and that is that if you wanted to use the execution API from QTP to kick off a QuerySurge run to see what that data is, and perhaps get some information back from that, and then do some executions of against the BI tool to look at what data might be in there, that is entirely feasible. So you can do that sort of tandem set of runs from a tool like QTP.
Okay, and just a couple more questions. Can we also run store procedures too?
Yeah, absolutely. There's again no limitation on syntax at all of any sort within QuerySurge. Your SQL syntax can be anything that you like. As with the query pair that I've got up showing right now, you can issue calls to stored procedures, and you can run pretty much any kind of statement that you want. The only thing that you have to make sure that is in place is that the login that you're using for the database that you want to do this on gives you permissions to do it. But that's really external to QuerySurge. If you've got the permissions to do what you want, QuerySurge lets you go and do it.
Okay, last two. The first one is, are there limitations on the volume of data that can be handled?
QuerySurge itself contains no inherent limitations on data. Obviously, when you deploy QuerySurge, you're going to deploy it against on some hardware. And if you deploy it against beefy hardware, you will be able to handle lots of data. If you deploy it on less beefy hardware, then that will limit the amount of data that you can handle. So the more The more resources that you give QuerySurge, the farther it can go, but it's completely a hardware limitation. QuerySurge itself is happy to do whatever you ask it to do.
And this next question is related to the last one in that it says, what are the hardware requirements for optimum performance?
Hardware requirements for optimum performance. Well, that really depends on a lot of factors that are beyond QuerySurge. Your testing style, how much data you've got to test, what your environment looks like, and so forth. What we do offer, what I can offer now, and what we do offer is some minimum specs. And typically, in order to give people lots of flexibility, what we urge them to deploy on for their production deployment of QuerySurge is to deploy on both the app server and the database servers on separate server boxes, ideally with 16 gigs of RAM or more. And we like to see people deploy their agents on boxes that ideally have 8 gigs. Obviously, more is better, so you can do that at whatever level that you have access to and what you want. Let me stress 2 other important aspects to this. We don't really impose any limitations on where you deploy, so for trials, if you just want to deploy on your desktop with quite a bit less resources than that, feel free to. You can see all the QuerySurge features. Maybe you can't run as much data as you could on a more elaborate deployment, but you can certainly run plenty of data through on your desktop. And in addition to that, there are a variety of configuration settings once you get into QuerySurge and kind of deeply understand what it's about that allow you to get as much bang for the buck as you can from the deployment that you've installed QuerySurge on.
Okay, so that wraps up our webinar today, and thank you for your time, and the participation has been great. Look out for an email from me with the slides and the presentation recording, and please feel free to reach out to us directly if you're interested in a private demo or a trial, or if you just have any questions. So thanks again, and have a great day.